All right, guys, it's Paul Singh, the Market Speculator, with the trade report for Monday, August 21st, 2017. I'm recording this Sunday evening, so as usual, when I record them the night before, if anything significant happens before the open, I'll send something out at that time. Let's take a look at the indexes and the plan for the week. Big week last week where initially, all this action was the previous week. Initially on Monday, we got the big pop, made it look like the trend was going to reverse, this pullback was going to reverse, and we were going to go back into the uptrend. For a while, that was working, and then that did not happen, and we got the huge move down again. Now, overall, this is looking pretty negative. The tough spot here when you head into the week is when this thing has dropped this far, it's really tough to establish shorts at this time. So what I want to do is be prepared for one of two things. One, either a bounce or some type of consolidation and then the next move down. That would be the easiest play. Otherwise, if this just keeps dropping, we just basically watch, although we are prepared because we have that VIX position on. So we at least are going to profit on that. And I may add to that position. So I may add another 200 or another 300 shares to that as this thing is dropping, and then VIX would start to explode. So basically, we're heading into the week prepared for either way, either or, and we can't really predict what's going to happen. And sometimes I'll get an email from someone saying, "Hey, make a pick, make a direction," and that's not what we do, or predict a direction. And that's not what we do. We're prepared for what happens according to setups and probabilities that we trade. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at SPY, looking at IWM, and then looking at the Qs, basically marking these key levels, looking at where it could potentially reverse. Now the Qs is right at the 50-day moving average. So we'll see if it bounces from there. And then we've got a bunch of industries here, or sectors that we're paying attention to. And for each of these, I'm taking the leveraged long and the leveraged short. For example, the Qs. We've got TQQ here, and then we've got SQQ. If I decide to short, the easiest thing to do is just go long the inverse. So it's essentially, by going long the inverse, you're essentially shorting the Qs. And if you look at it flipped like this, sometimes it makes everything even more clear. Like if you look at this, look at the positive instead of here, where when we're looking at the Qs, we see the negative volume pattern. And it's still hard to see it as a short sometimes, but if you flip it over and you look at that inverse, boy, does that look like a good long kind of bottoming formation here. So another way to look at it, but this is the way we would play it. So for each one of these, now if we look at biotech, XBI, again, pretty negative, especially if it breaks this level here, but if it remounts to 50, we would be positive again. So going into the week, I'm watching LABU to the long side, LABD to the short side. And again, LABD, it becomes more clear when you look at some of these inverses how good some of these things look as shorts. And then financials, we're also watching. I'm not as interested in financials as some of these other areas. XLE is very extended to the downside. Now, the interesting thing about energy here, even though it's gotten hit really hard, put in a nice reversal on Friday, and the volume is actually a little different than the rest of the areas we're watching, where it's actually some pretty good volume. So this is one where we could think about to the long side right now with ERX. And then if this failed and we wanted to short, it's ERY. And ERY, maybe it puts in a topping pattern here, but we'll have to see price direction. We don't have a lot of that right now. So basically the plan for this week is to either go long or short one of these ETFs. And then also we're building relative strength lists of stocks and ETFs. We've got a basket of stocks, and the ETFs that are showing relative strength are basically the BRICS, and more specifically China and Brazil. And let's pull up those indexes here. We've got Brazil here looking really strong, about to fill the gap here when it had the big breakdown. It's taken a while, a few months here to recover. And now if it crosses this 39.10, 39.20 area, it could be off to the races. So we're watching Brazil very closely, and then China as well. And here's yen. Let's look at FXI. I had made this big run. Now a little bit of a pullback, starting to look a little bit like the U.S. markets. But what I've been noticing is, one, the volume pattern is better than the U.S. markets, and two, individual stocks are looking pretty good. Like if we pull up Baidu, if we pull up BABA, These things look pretty strong here. So I do like China, if not the index, then the leveraged ETF. So we're looking at those two areas. We're looking at the Qs. We're looking at energy, gold. Let's pull up JNUG, and obviously looking pretty strong, although Friday kind of pulled back. Maybe this is a topping pattern, and then UGLD as well. And then if we wanted to short, we could use Dust. And then finally, a big list of relative strength stocks with Baidu, with Baba, the two Chinas, basically. LL here, Lumber Liquidators looking really strong post-earnings breakout. WTW, another post-earnings breakout that's looking very strong, sitting at the 9. If it breaks to highs, we could get in. Snap has been beaten down, but now showing a lot of strength here. So we'll watch this one very closely. A consolidation and then a break. Race, Ferrari IPO, has been on a tear and set to break out to new highs again. Maybe we could enter this one right now. Yelp has come out of nowhere with that earnings breakout after being beaten down for a really long time here. It is back up to these recent highs now. And we can watch for the typical earnings breakout pattern, but we've also got the highs here at about 43.50 to pay attention to as well. SEDG, Solars, we're already in FSLR, but still nice overall pattern, although it has pulled back to the bottom of the range. And then there's the stuff we always watch. We could go long or short these. Netflix, I want to see how this bounces at the 50. If it can cross that 9, I would consider getting back in. It would have to cross the 9. And then Tesla, overall has been pretty good, but pulled back in. We need to see how it tests the 50 and maybe even wait till it actually clears this range and maybe clears maybe 370 here, and then we could play a move to 380, 390, somewhere in there, even 400. So that's essentially what we're doing to start the week. As the week progresses, we're going to get some clues on which direction to go, and then we'll make those decisions. And then current positions, UVXY is our short kind of hedge. It was very volatile on Friday, but held up, and we entered right around 38. We'll see how that one plays out. But if UVXY does not work, that should mean that our FSLR and Facebook positions are doing well, and they're holding up pretty good, holding up those gap levels we talked about pretty good so far. So through this big sell-off, they've held their levels and actually shown some relative strength. So that's a good thing. All right, guys. So that's it for the trade report. Again, if something major happens pre-market, I'll let you guys know. Otherwise, if there's a trade alert intraday, we'll talk then. Otherwise, we'll see you guys Monday night or Tuesday morning.